I'm Jim Shaw, publisher of the Lexington Times and chairman of the board of LexMedia. Welcome to another segment of Coffee with the Candidates, LexMedia's program to help bring a little bit more information about the local election and introduce you to the candidates that are seeking office, especially this year in 2025. We've got a lot of candidates seeking office this year. Most of the major offices are challenged. In the case of the school committee, we do have two incumbents running for two spots, but we do have a challenger who's running because she has a lot of important points to make. And Lana Panasyuk, did I get that okay?
Correct, yeah.
All right. I know we've been practicing a little bit, and I appreciate your patience with me. Lana is a 26-year resident here in Lexington who's been active mostly in the area of youth, you know, with young schools in the academic environment. I know she holds a PhD from MIT in geophysics and an MBA in entrepreneurship from Babson. And I know you explained to me that you've been active with the robotics club, the science club, the math club. Big backyard walks. Tell me a little bit about the big backyard walks, and then I'm going to finish talking about some of the other things you're involved with, because I found that interesting.
Yeah, it's awesome program in elementary schools. It's founded by parents, and so parents come in, take a group of kids, 5 or 6 per classroom, and 3 times a year, and they bring them to the nature. Mm-hmm. So you walk with the kids, and it happens 3 times a year: spring, winter, fall, winter, and spring. And for the parent, it gives you opportunity to see the kids in the environment and nature, and explain the little bugs, the little leaves, the birds, the snow, how everything appears in the nature. And it gives you opportunity to see kids, how they interact between each other, how friendships are building, and also speak with the teachers and give love to nature for the kids.
And you plant the seed with young people with experiences like that. Similarly, when I was young, probably around 3rd grade, I remember going in to see the symphony play Peter and the Wolf. Mm-hmm. And I became a closet fan of classical music. You know, I didn't want to tell my friends, everybody's listening to rock and roll, right? You know, at the time, we're walking around with our AM radios. And I was afraid to say how much I loved classical music. But it was that exposure to it that made the difference. And today, I spend most of my time listening to classical music. And I just absolutely love it. But getting kids up close to nature is important. They learn to respect it.
Yeah, and provide so that they can see the little details.
Yeah, you plant the seed, it germinates, and they start to develop their own interests.
Yeah, and we name the trees. We would visit the trees through different seasons. Right. And it's interesting to see the kids, and then they would draw the little details.
The Latin names for all the different species and such.
No, not the Latin
Not that far.
No, not that far. You gotta keep it simple and engaging, and run around instead of sitting at the desk.
The winter of my discontent, I actually spent a summer studying Latin at UMass when I decided to change my major on something, and I had to add a language requirement. So I did 4 semesters of Latin in one summer, and it was absolutely awful. It was awful. All right.
Don't remember anything.
So I want to point out, too, that you're also a youth hockey coach, which I found very interesting, and coach soccer as well. And you were very active in the PTO, you said, and that you basically helped start the electronic newsletter
at Fisk,
at Fisk School, and that you were very active in finding a Lextended Day back in the day.
Yeah, with Susan, I was on the board of directors. We used the program a lot, and it's an awesome program. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not at Fisk anymore, but we would have it.
It's a phenomenal program. My son went through it. He's actually part of our team here today, but he went through it over at Harrington School. We loved it. You know, one of the big issues facing us, obviously, is the high school. I'm going to put that aside for a minute because I do want to talk to you about the high school. But during our conversation prior to the start of this, you brought up something important about bringing a voice back to the parents so that their ideas and concerns and thoughts are really on the minds of the school committee. So basically giving rise to the parents and giving them sort of a way to participate more directly and effectively, and that's something that's important to you.
It is very important. It's one of the main goals of the school committee, to make sure that public is involved into all the decision making and that public is listened to. And what is happening right now, you can speak at the school committee meeting, but nobody's hearing you. So you can speak, you can try to do anything, but there is no feedback loop, like there is no action involved. And I think it is because there is no outlined procedure how to react usually when parents speak. It's something very critical because parents are very, very busy people. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have jobs, they have kids, they have houses, they're building their career. And if they find this little piece of time and they come to the school committee and speak up about the issue, and then the school committee is just, okay.
Right. Thanks for being here. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So it's a failure in the fundamental role of the school committee. So I got frustrated with it because my 3 younger kids now in high school and middle school, and I see all those changes. I have 2 older ones who already graduated 20 and 10 years ago, and I see what's going on. So I start raising my voice. I would start come up with in the forums, talk to the school committee, sending emails, and it's like nothing is happening. And I look around with all the parents around me in the same position. Mm-hmm. So I want to bring voice of the parents into the school committee so mm-hmm. that there is something is happening. Right. Because we have wonderful parents who are they're very educated, very, very involved. It's a treasure to have parents like this who really want to educate their kids. And we're just ignoring their opinion. That mm-hmm. just doesn't make any sense.
Right, and it's true. You know, when you think about the statistics, Lexington is one of the highest, the people in Lexington demographically are some of the highest educated people in the Commonwealth, and the Commonwealth is the highest educated state in the Union. So, you know, when you look right down at it, it doesn't get more than like you're talking about. People, and they want that for their kids too. They don't necessarily want them to go out and get PhDs and all of that, but they come here. You know, the schools are a magnet for people coming to this community. They're consistently in the top 5, not even the top 10, like in the top 5, often number 1 in rankings.
And what's also important about parents in Lexington, that we have mm-hmm. a very multicultural community. Right. So, mm-hmm. like, I was born in Russia. Mm-hmm. So my education is very, very classical and fundamental. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was given it for free. I was lucky. Mm-hmm. But it gave me opportunity to start with 0, coming 30 years ago, to I have the family and I live in Lexington. Mm-hmm. There are other communities. We have a big Chinese community, big Indian community. Mm-hmm. It's like a lot of cultures, and every culture comes with its own experience. Right. So such a nice opportunity to have a mixing pot. Right. Like get the best, because American system has some of the wonderful parts which I can see, but they don't have different parts as, for example, Russian system. What I would like to have it in the middle. Right. This is golden middle, and have the parents provide the feedback so that we can truly mm-hmm. have the best education system in the world, because we have the opportunity to do that. Right. But if we don't accept any information from outside from the parents, how are we going to do that?
And not every parent. I mean, you know, I've been to see programs at like the Russian School of Math. They're one of the most prominent of the tutoring organizations in Lexington. They have literally, I think they have something like 1,500 students over there at any given time, and they're very successful. But they're successful for a reason, because they do good work. And but I go over there and I see that, you know, I can very easily see who's going over there. You know, the Chinese students, the Indian students, others, what that tells me is that there is an interest in making sure that kids are getting full access to educational opportunities. I do hear from time to time frustrated parents saying we just don't feel like we're being heard, and I do know that. I think we're fortunate. I will say this: we're fortunate. I think Julie Hackett is a spectacular superintendent. She's great with kids. We may have a different opinion on that. I don't know. I don't know how you feel about her leadership. I find her to be, she connects well with the kids, she connects well with the community. I know I see her active in Cal and all of this stuff. So I feel like she's accessible, but she's not the school committee. Like you said, there's a fundamental difference between the superintendent and the school committee. And so with that, making sure that the voice of the parents are heard, I think is hugely important, and connecting on that level.
What you brought about the RSM, and now we have a lot of other extracurricular math clubs around, like almost 10 around the center of Lexington. And why is that happening? Because I have 2 older kids who already graduated high school. So we used to have several levels of difficulty in math in middle school. So the parents and teachers would recommend, coming from the 5th grade from elementary, where to place the kid. So, kids are different. There are some kids who excel in math. That's just the way their brain works. Some kids who excel in arts, so they're not very adopt to the math thinking. So I think it makes sense to separate them into the high level and the middle level and the low level, the same as it was 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And then those kids who are in the higher level, they are not going to get bored, and they would have a teacher who knows how to teach those extremely smart kids.
Like
and
AP, do they still have AP in the school system?
No, in the middle school right now it's the same level. So I have my kids in the middle school. One is there, another one is there. This one hates math because he's bored. This one hates math because he can't catch up.
Right.
And what's in the middle? And now we have a teacher who's supposed to teach all this big range of kids within one classroom. Right. It's very hard for the teacher. I've taught kids, and I've taught the students, and it's very hard when you have a big range. So why don't we separate them as we used to have it?
Right.
And then the parents will not need to pay that extra money for math, because they're paying there at this level as well to bring the kids up to them.
Right.
And they pay at this level to keep the kids engaged.
Right.
So that's one of the things, and it's not just me saying, it's a lot of parents upset about it.
And there were a few things that we had talked about before we started, and I kind of wrote a series of lists, but since we're touching on it, let's just jump ahead a little bit. Curriculum. When you talk about a math curriculum, or you talk about curriculum in general, curriculum development, that's another important issue for you. You feel as though kids aren't reaching their potential sometimes because they may have too much free time or this or that. We're not focused on certain things. So talk a little bit about your interest as a member of the school committee in terms of focusing on curriculum development.
So again, as a school committee, we need to listen to the parents, what's going on. For example, in high school, and since my kid just entered the high school, I was not aware of what's going on. But apparently there are some classes which are only AP, and there is no incremental learning. So you're either there or you're there.
Right.
So going back to how I've learned, we had science or physics starting from grade 6. Just a little bit, not too much. But then grade 7, a little bit more. So by the time you're in high school, you kind of know, like, are you into physics, or you into chemistry, or you're just, or maybe you're just mathematician, or maybe you're into arts.
Right.
But then everyone gets gradually prepared, and then in the high school, then if the kid wanna have a middle level of chemistry versus AP level chemistry, the ones who are ready for AP, they'll be exceeding there. Because they had enough gradual incremental learning. Because what is happening right now, and that's what I hear from parents, I'm not there yet with my kids. But what the complaint is that the step is way too big. The same as a step with homework coming, okay, elementary school, no homework, middle school, high school, all of a sudden we got a whole bunch of, and the kids are not prepared for that. And it's additional frustration, and that's additional stress level.
Yeah, so they don't even send worksheets home? Because I remember when I went to to elementary school here in Lexington, and I went to Harrington School myself, and I remember bringing worksheets home, but they don't even do that anymore?
No, that's really? I think that's the biggest problem, because you don't teach kids the work ethic. It's you don't have to have a lot, just 5 minutes, a little bit by little bit, and then they would get used to of learning, because we have to teach them how to learn by themselves. When they finish college, the technology could be absolutely different. You cannot teach the technology will exist in 10 years. But you can teach to learn. You can teach the kids to sit down, take a book, go in the computer, ask questions, and learn by themselves. And the foundation of that learning starts in kindergarten, in first grade, in the second grade.
Right.
One of the arguments was, oh, the kids are too stressed out. But when my older kids were in elementary school, they used to have yoga lessons. I still have yoga mat in my closet, which I brought for my kid. And this is essential because once you go into your life, you finish all the schooling, you leave the parents, and that's a very stressful environment.
Right.
And you can't be just,
Life is hard.
Life is hard, you know that.
Right.
But what you need to know how to cope with it. You can take a yoga, you can take a dog for a walk, you can go run around the house like crazy.
Right.
Sometimes my kids get crazy at home and I'm like, go do 10 loops around the house, come back and tell me how you feel.
That's the coach in you, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, but the kids need to, or take a deep breath, as simple as this. Turn around, like go sit in the corner, just get yourself a space. But if the kids don't know how to deal it, then there is issues.
So it's safe to say you're really committed to the overall, the growth of the student, the child, and just about any environment, whether it's in public schools or even a continuing education program at home. You're not continuing it like formally speaking, but the learning process doesn't stop because the bell rings at 2:50 or whatever it is.
Absolutely, because what I look at the child, how we all bring that child. It's like a stool with 3 legs.
Right.
One leg is school, teachers, another leg is parent, and another leg is a student. So take away one of those and the stool will fall.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work like this. But it's only 3, and we have to work together. So if there is any issue, like I would email or call the teacher, like, you know what, something is going on, tell me what's going on in school so that we can work together and we can build, because every kid is different. You can't just have like, oh, everybody does this and this and this. Every kid is different.
Right, you're absolutely right.
They grow
every kid may have a certain level of intelligence, but everybody learns differently.
And the
I was
parents,
diagnosed later in life as an adult with ADD, and I knew I had it when I was younger, and it was a bit of an impediment, but I pushed through. I got accepted to some good colleges and went to school, and and there was hope for me. But I didn't do well in the mathematics. I did okay in the sciences. But I was more verbal. I was more, I gravitated towards English when I ended up studying and getting a degree in government and one in political science. But everybody learns differently. And
when I say the excellence in academia, academic excellence, that's one of my biggest issue. What do you call academia? What do you call academic excellence? It can be math, it can be science, it can be physics, it can be language, it can be art, it can be sport.
Right.
As simple as it can be swimming. But excellence in the academic actually means that you have to have structure, so you're not wandering around. You know where your goal is, because when you're growing up, you have oh, what's going on around me? But if you know this is my goal, that's where I'm going, and the school and our community can provide and help you. You don't have to be good in math, therefore you take the low level of math, but we give you a lot of opportunity to do ceramics or art or creative writing. That's where you excel and you feel good about it. This is your part which is designed for you to flourish.
Right.
And
learning can't always be a task, because people will lose interest. They've got to find something in there that catches their interest.
And something that they're good at, because everyone is predisposed to something. It's the way how you're born, not just physically, but mentally and whatever. And the parents, I think that it's the hardest part. You need to find in your kid where that kid is good at, because the kid is going to work hard, and then the biggest pleasure is when you achieve something and you know how much you put into it, and then you have the moment, and that's my reward. And that's where the joy comes from.
Right.
It's not just, oh, let's dance, let's have a party, but you work hard towards something, and then you feel a relief of oh, that's what it is.
Right.
And the same with sports. It's the same feeling, like you you sweat a lot. You want, you know that this is your goal. You gotta catch up. You gotta, and then you're there, and it's like climbing a mountain.
Right.
You struggle so much, and finally you're like, oh, and now I can see.
Right.
Now I can
a certain
see far.
euphoria that comes from that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a part of, this is part of the learning. And it goes, again, it doesn't have to be technical or anything.
Right.
Even like, I don't know, making a cup or making, like you said, you took classes in Minuteman. That's another part I want to bring in.
Right.
We need to bring something to the Lexington High where kids can work with their hands.
Right.
Because if you look physiologically, the brain develops when the kid's just born.
Right.
There are a lot of things they have to do with their hands, and that stimulates the brain activity. It's all related. But it's again like you work hard on the piece, and you look at the cup and you say, that looks good.
Right.
And that's your pleasure.
One of the points you were making again before we started was the role of the school committee versus the role of the superintendent. The school committee, kind of defines the goals and such for the school community and the superintendent. The school committee hires the superintendent. Superintendent then goes out and manages the schools. And I don't know if you have any particular concerns about the communication between the school committee and the superintendent, but you did mention that, so I thought I'd bring it up in terms of, how important is it to you that the school committee and the superintendent have a solid working relationship?
It is extremely important. It's like you have a company in business, you have a board of directors, which has fiduciary responsibility to citizens. Like in this analogy.
There's a social contract, I think, with the school committee that we're going to educate your children the best way we can.
Exactly. And then this board of directors or school committee, they have the goals. They have to establish goals in communication with the community. So those are our goals. And how do we implement those goals? How do we reach this, where we're going? And for that, they need the CEO. They need the executive person who would come and implement that. And that's where we hire the superintendent. And then in a year, the superintendent, we have the SMART goals for the executive power. We say, okay, this is immeasurable, not just abstract goals, but for example, the literacy. Okay, right now we have 30% of kids who are reading below grade level. So first we need to bring the metrics. How do we know that it's 30%? And then we change the curriculum according, there are a lot of literature, and I know parents are pushing for the effective curriculum. We educate the teachers. We, after say 6 months, or I don't know what the time period, you do the metrics and you say, oh, now we have 20% of kids. So we're doing a good job. And that's at the end of the year, that's evaluation, that's your metric. Because learning is hard. They're not necessarily going to be happy if it's struggle. I mean, some kids do struggle. Like I know my kids.
What do we do for those kids, though? We don't just cast them aside, right? We find new ways to bring them into the program.
Exactly, but we need the support. We need the, you call them Union C teachers, the teachers who help with special education. And right now, a lot of kids after the pandemic dropped into that special education category. Maybe not officially, but they require additional help.
Right.
Because after the pandemic, some kids in 3rd grade couldn't use the scissors just because they were at home instead of being in the classroom environment. I mean, face-to-face in school is extremely important.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so we need to hire more special education teachers. And we need to make sure that we test the kids earlier. Because if you catch them early, especially with dyslexia, if you catch them earlier, you can help them so that they are not struggling further.
Right.
Because if you look at our curriculum, a lot of, for example, in math, a lot of exercises or tasks are written language.
Right.
I have a hard time understanding written language, but I can read at least. I can read and I can speak it up, and I like to draw pictures when I try to understand it. And that's what I teach my kids.
And they only fall further behind. If you don't identify that that problem or that impediment to learning early, it just creates a bigger divide because the kids, it's not like they're going to, if they're having a problem here, by the time they get here, it's going to be a bigger problem if they're not dealing with it.
Yeah, but you need to have the support teachers. You need to identify them. You need to have a metric so that you know that you're progressing in the right direction.
Well, that you're measuring everybody with the same metric so that you're not, so there's some standard.
Yeah. And then you need to hire the teachers, special education teachers or literacy teachers, so that the parents don't take the kids out in the private school for that. Because we can provide for that. We have, the taxes are huge in the town.
Right.
We can hire those teachers and set up the learning structure or curriculum so that we can help the kids.
And you see yourself as a good team player, somebody who could join a board like that, a school committee, and work with others to solve problems? And
I think so. Because I'm old.
No.
No, because it does take, I'm an immigrant. I was born in a different country. I came here, I see the value, and I talk to a lot of people. And I speak with accent. And I know a lot of people in Lexington speak with accent. And I know this foundation which you bring and you want to mix in with the current. So you find the ways, and again, because I've been, I raised the kids for 26 years in the town.
Right.
I have lots of friends with a different background, with different perspective, with a different views. But because you unite over the family, over the kids, that helps you to find that common ground. You always can, first of all, everyone wants best for the kids.
Right.
That's a foundational, if you know this.
Everyone's in agreement on that, right?
Yeah, we are in agreement with this. And now everyone comes from different perspective and they have a strong point of view and sometimes they have not less strong. But we need to discuss it. We can't just shut off and say, I don't want to talk to you. We need to discuss, we need to understand. Because if you're on the same baseline.
Yeah. How do you feel like the superintendent? Is she doing a good job as our superintendent? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I think it's a fair question.
It is a fair question. So when I decided, right before I decided to run for school committee, I actually went to the documents from on the website from the 1980, 1986, 2000, 2015, and I pulled the goals of the school committee and I compared them to the goals of which were provided by Massachusetts. There is Massachusetts School Committee Association, which tells you what your goal's supposed to be. And it was fine in terms of academic excellence and all that. I kind of related to that, except in the 2018, the goals have changed. And I actually, when I was looking through the documents, I noticed that the superintendent said that she couldn't find the goals, and therefore we have the new goals, which is joy, curiosity, and compassion.
And you believe that that's a little bit esoteric. In other words, it's hard to quantify.
It's exactly.
Okay.
So I am in disagreement with that. So when I joined if the citizens choose me, if they vote for me, so my first question would be to discuss within the committee. Let's bring the basics from the Massachusetts School Committee Association, and let's set up the goals which we can measure and we can report, and the public can evaluate us based on these goals.
Right.
And then we would tell the goals to the superintendent.
Right.
I'm sure she will.
But do you think you could find some common ground? Because, to some degree, finding joy in learning is an important thing. So if you could, set up a program or develop a metric where you can actually measure the child's success, having some joy in that learning process is not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah, but as you're saying, as a main principle, it's really, it should be an offshoot of.
Exactly.
Right.
It's ask any climber.
Right.
You climb the wall. You climb the mountain. It's really, really hard.
Yeah.
But then you always get this moment of joy.
We got only a couple of minutes left, and I wanted to get back to the issue because it's a hot button issue going into the election. bloom or no bloom. You know, I guess that's what it's come down to, right? I hate to say it like
it's
that.
not like this, yeah.
But you know, it started off as a concept that's got whittled down to this, and then there was some infighting over the fields and this and that, and so they've come together on this concept of bloom. Tell me a little bit about bloom, and where do you come down on this?
So I've learned a lot since summer. And why? Because I know that my son was going into high school, so it's kind of, as a parent, like I turn my attention into this question. And then I start pulling all the documents, why the decision was made. I mean, first of all, because I have, like, I've done the business side in my life and still doing it. So I like look at the requirements, where the requirements come from. And I started quite independently looking at the whole question, to the point where I spent several weekends going through the environmental wetlands and identifying the leaves, is that was classified correctly or not, what is a wetland, because there are different constraints, you know, on the fields, the building on the fields. So because I have very analytical mind, I like go from the basics, going up. And then at some point, I think in September or October, and I start hearing that the studies which we discuss or designs we present, they're what's the word where we don't discuss cost? Massing studies, which for me it's like, wait a second, cost is one of the requirements, because we live in that's from our tax money. We can't just say it's not. Forget about cost. So cost has to be. And then my kid went to high school, and I'm like, oh my goodness, overcrowding, which means we have to solve the overcrowding. So will that project solve overcrowding? Let's see, maybe in 5-6 years. But then the MBTA rezoning came in, and I look all the numbers, I do the projections, I do the
There's going to be an increase. We can't agree on what that number is, but there's going to be an increase.
Yeah, but what it's going to be, like my kids are suffering right now because of overcrowding. The kids in 5 years are going to be suffering in that school again. So we are back to
after spending $750 million, right?
Exactly, and 5-6 years. So what's the point? And I'm trying not to be bloom or no bloom.
Right.
Because I hate when the community gets so frustrated.
Right.
Because we can't we can't talk about it. So that's why, like, my foundation comes, let's look at the kids. And I understand some parents are, oh, the walls are too old. But for me, through all my experience, and I talk to my older kids, what do you remember from school? What do you remember from school? You remember teachers?
Of course, I remember the teachers, of course, and I do have fond memories of the campus itself. I love the California concept. You know, I loved, even in the wintertime, being able to get outside into some fresh air, going from building to building. I wasn't worse for the wear. It woke me up, actually. You know, if you're in the building, but that's. But luckily for me, I'm not running, so I don't have to put my opinion on the table. I'm just kidding. No. But I find some value in that old concept. But still, you know, and I think you're right. Does it come down, you know, do we have to limit the conversation to bloom and no bloom? And maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should not close off other potential ideas.
Yeah, I'd like when people, I love the argument. I love the debate. I hate when people get upset and angry and shut out and just leave. That's not constructional. Like we need to discuss it.
Right.
And I can change my opinion. For example, originally I thought we need to close campus. I was against the California campus in my mind.
Yeah.
And then on one of the forums, the students from high school were invited, and there were like 20 of them, and they presented, and all of them said, we love the California campus. We want to be outside. We want to be that and that and that. And I'm like, wait a second.
What am I missing here, right? Yeah.
What am I missing here? And I talked to my older kids, and they like, we loved it. And it's like, okay. But what about, I talked to other parents, and they say, the security issue is not good.
Right.
And I said, okay.
That's the big issue,
but
security. Yeah.
I talked to professionals in the security business. This is their profession. That's what they do. And they said, you know what, God forbid, in any case, there could be something.
Right.
And then the other team would say, I told you so.
Right.
Or this one, I told you so. So we
Nothing's
can,
foolproof, right?
nothing is foolproof, but there are concepts which are perfectly safe in this camp and in this camp.
Right.
So after this, I said, okay, if we can provide security, but the kids really want that.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, as a mother, I would rather them to be dispersed,
Right.
not confined. But again, like now I forget that I'm a mother because I'm relying on the
Right.
professional experience.
Right.
They say it's safe either way.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's listen to the kids.
Right.
That's what they like.
At
That's,
the end of the day, it's all about the kids.
yeah.
Right. Well, listen, I've enjoyed talking with you. I'm learning a lot more about you, and
Thank
you're
you.
obviously a very interesting person with a great background and obviously a good commitment, a solid commitment to the best interest of our kids. So I wish you the best in the election.
Thank you very much.
If you could, as we close, maybe you could tell a little bit about where people can find out more about you. You have a website, so let people know about what the website is and how they can find out more about you.
Can I have that paper?
Of course.
Yeah, so I know that this is awesome with the picture. You guys doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much because it's amazing.
Yep.
And LexMedia does perfect job.
LexMedia is wonderful.
Yeah.
The commitment. We like the 1-2 punch. We like to. We do it in print. Here we do it on the air, and
Yeah.
you know, we want. It's our jobs. We believe it's our jobs to help people come to a decision. So I know people can learn more about you by reading this.
Yeah, there are about all the candidates.
Yeah.
This just comes out, but it's very easy. Go on the website, type Lana, letter 4, lex.org,
Okay.
and you get all the information there. And something about my biography with more pictures. People like pictures.
Yeah.
And something about my statement and donations. I know it all costs money.
Right.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And it all costs money for the candidates as well.
Lana Panasyuk,
Panasyuk.
thank you very much for being here, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.